Good morning. Glad to have you join us on the news at 10 on NTA News 24. We're reaching you live from our studio in Abuja. My name is Blessing Abu. Here are the headlines. Addressing security challenges in the ECOWAS sub-region, President Buhari pledges enhanced regional cooperation. Resolving petroleum downstream concerns, President Buhari inaugurates a 50,000 barrels per day modular refinery.
With worldwide market.
Ending violence against women and girls. 16 days activism underway. Let's begin the news with the presidency, where the federal government gives assurance of Nigeria's support for the Republic of Chad in view of their long-standing brotherhood and good neighborliness. President Muhammadu Buhari made the pledge while receiving a special envoy from President Idris Deby Itno of Chad. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has details.
President Muhammadu Buhari said Nigeria appreciates the support she is getting in tackling insecurity from the neighboring Chad Republic. He described as unfortunate the problem Chad is facing with Libya, which supports some rebels trying to destabilize the country. The president expressed worry that the instability in Libya after 42 years of Muammar Gaddafi affects all the countries in the Sahel region, from Mauritania to Central African Republic. Gaddafi, he said, recruited gunmen who learned to do nothing else than to kill. And when the former leader was killed, the gunmen escaped with their arms and are wreaking havoc all across the region. President Buhari expressed Nigeria's gratitude to Chad for the diverse kinds of support given to combat the Boko Haram insurgency, saying the federal government will always stand by the neighboring country in its local and international aspirations. The Special Envoy and Chadian Minister of Foreign Affairs, African Integration and Chadians Abroad, Amin Abbas Siddiq, conveyed a message from President Idris Deby, whom he said sent fraternal greetings to President Muhammadu Buhari and Nigerians in general. Details contained in the message were, however, not made public. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
And good news for the downstream sector as President Muhammadu Buhari directs the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, the DPR and the NNPC to give the necessary support to Walter Smith Refining and Petrochemical Company, including access to crude oil and condensate feedstock towards expanding the capacity of its modular refinery to 50,000 barrels per day. The president gave the directive at a virtual inauguration of the company's 5,000 barrels per day modular refinery in Imo State. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo again has details.
The Walter Smith Modular Refinery, first and the largest so far in Nigeria, has a crude oil storage capacity of 60,000 barrels and is projected to deliver over 271 million liters per annum of refined petroleum products, including kerosene, diesel, and heavy fuel oils to the domestic market. Presently refining 5,000 barrels per day, the company is looking at 50,000 barrels per day refining capacity that will come with a planned additional 2 modules, which will then add PMS, aviation fuel, and LPG to the product slates. President Muhammadu Buhari is delighted that after many years of giving licenses for the establishment of modular refineries by successive governments without success, one has formally come on stream within 2 years of the commencement of his administration's refinery roadmap.
The development of modular refineries represents one of the 4 key elements of our refinery roadmap rolled out in 2018, aimed at addressing the challenges in the downstream sector to meet our local needs and eliminate importation of petroleum products. The realization of the refinery roadmap will ultimately lead us to becoming a net exporter of petroleum products, not only to our neighboring countries, but to worldwide market.
The president noted with satisfaction the increased momentum in the other three focus areas of the roadmap, covering the rehabilitation of existing refineries, collocation of new refineries, and construction of greenfield refineries.
In line with our agenda on job creation, I am pleased to note that hundreds of direct and indirect jobs were created during the construction of the first phase of the project, in addition to the various business opportunities. There is no doubt that the construction of the second phase of the project will create bigger additional employment opportunities. Let me use this opportunity to congratulate the local community and the people of Imo State for hosting this refinery, which I trust will bring prosperity and economic development.
Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State said Imolites cannot thank President Buhari enough for his deliberate efforts at encouraging a truly private sector-driven economy.
Imo State is today the first round beneficiary of these visionary policies. President Buhari is the undisputed champion of walking the talk, of ensuring private sector participation in an economy that has always been public sector driven. This can only come from a visionary leadership that is focused and determined to make life for the citizens more meaningful. This is only the beginning. After now, there are a lot of other refineries in line to be commissioned, and we are hoping that very soon the in-country capacity to refine will be up to as much as 250,000 barrels per day. Today marks an important ovation and indeed a milestone in our quest to ensure robust energy independence through gradual reduction in the importation of petroleum products into our country.
Walter Smith obtained license for the modular refinery in June 2015, got the authority to construct in March 2017, commenced construction in October 2018, and delivered in less than 24 months ahead of schedule, thereby beginning to change the narrative in the nation's struggle towards securing petroleum products for domestic consumption. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says government wants to see greater commitment and a plan that is as aggressive as the country's aspirations. The Vice President during a webinar with some French business leaders under the auspices of the Franco-Nigeria Chamber of Commerce and Industry notes that the private sector commitment needs to align with the federal government's backward integration policy, noting that over the years, many companies have committed to backward integration but have simply not been as diligent and faithful with those promises.
Build our economies. It's very evident that we cannot do this without collaboration. And meaningful collaboration is really quite critical here. Collaboration between countries and between sectors has become more important than ever. You know, for us, a key priority remains the provision of jobs for the large number of very young people. You know, 70% of Nigeria's population. In effect, you know, providing jobs for the Nigerian population. And we have been determined to, you know, work on ways to continue to create real opportunities for young Nigerians, bridging existing skill gaps, equipping them with resources that they need to contribute positively to our national development. So we're really eager to work with, you know, member organizations of this Chamber of Commerce, you know, as we implement future programs, future job programs, future economic programs.
Vice President Osinbajo noted that part of what the Buhari administration had done in its response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which had caused economic downturn across the globe, was to build a business environment that will be supportive of domestic and foreign investors, stressing that the pandemic also provides incredible opportunities for doing all manner of very innovative and creative things. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, says government is committed to fostering partnership with the private sector for economic resilience as the Nigerian Economic Summit ends. She restates that the borrowing level of Nigeria is not on the high side and building infrastructure remains key to achieving the developmental goals of the nation.
Either we borrow these loans and do them now and improve the business environment so that businesses can invest here and grow and pay taxes, or we sit back and say until we're able to afford to, then we will do it.
Now, the Monetary Policy Committee had a briefing on Tuesday. Ronami Egirani has more on the briefing with Business News.
The general consensus at the CBN's Monetary Policy Committee briefing on Tuesday was that the current Nigerian economic outlook remains largely uncertain. In an attempt to reinvigorate the country's COVID-battered economy, the members of the MPC have decided to retain the key lending rate at 11.5%. They also decided to retain the asymmetric corridor at 100 plus and minus 700 basis points around the decided lending rate in order to ensure liquidity and economic growth. While reading the communique, CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele noted that through a unanimous vote, the committee resolved to retain the liquidity ratio and cash reserve ratio at 30% and 27.5% respectively. The Monetary Policy Committee says it expects some positive growth by the first quarter of 2021. And on the stock market on Tuesday, the 24th of November 2020, despite a massive reduction in the volume of trades made, we're talking about 200 million less than Monday's volume, the all-share index still experienced a slight uptick, closing at 34,340.56 points. The total value of trades made dropped drastically as well, closing at 4.69 billion naira, a 2.6 billion naira decline. Market capitalization remained relatively stable at 17.9 trillion naira. With Business News, I'm Ronami Egirani.
Still staying with the economy, on the road to recovery from Nigeria's second recession in 5 years, drivers of the economy are optimistic that with a 50% growth in the third quarter of 2020, recovery in the first quarter of 2021 is possible with the right fiscal and monetary policies. Benny Adams takes us through how the country got here.
Oil represents more than 80% of Nigeria's exports, 30% of its revenue. With the drop in global oil prices, government revenues dropped from an already low 8% of GDP in 2019 to a projected 5% in 2020. While the pandemic led to a fall in investment due to greater uncertainty, a reduction in remittances to Nigerian households was witnessed, thereby deepening poverty. And just when the economy was opening wider, livelihoods were being restored. Then came the NSAS protest fallout, inflicting varying injury to the economy, from effects of curfew to destruction of property, leading to ongoing loss of jobs. These signs were indicative of a looming recession, laced with a growth as being reflected in the dip of minus 6.1% in the second quarter of 2020, which showed that the economy needed almost 150% growth rate to attain the 3% projected. 3.62%, which shows negative decline for 2 quarters, is also reflective of a 50% growth rate from minus 6.1% recorded in second quarter. Recovery is being expected in the first quarter of 2021. For that to happen, experts are of the view that the economic sustainability plan must be given the support required, alongside positive actions from fiscal and monetary policies. Benny Adams, NTA News.
You're watching the news at 10 on NTA News 24. Up ahead, governors and people of the South-South region demand restructuring in line with the principle of fiscal federalism. These and more after the break.
Let's blow your trumpets. Advertise on NTA News 24, located at headquarters premises of the NTA, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. Our rates are affordable. Our reach is far and wide. We are on DSTV Channel 419, Star Times Channel 101, Go TV Channel 46, Free TV Channel 703. Please call Henry on 0803 379 0884. NTA News 24. News and more news.
Thank you for staying with us on the news at 10 on NTA News 24. Now, the Senate has received an executive communication requesting the confirmation of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu as chairman of INEC for a second term. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports that the request is in line with the provision of Section 154, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended.
It is the first Senate plenary in the last 1 month. Legislative business had shifted to the committee rooms for budget defense. The day's plenary took off with President of the Senate Ahmed Lawan reading letters from President Muhammadu Buhari for confirmation of appointments.
I am pleased to present for confirmation by the Senate the nomination of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu for appointment as Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for a second and final term.
Senate also received request for the confirmation of the appointment of 7 nominees as chairman and members of the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, with Hussaini Kangiwa as chairman. 8 nominees for Governing Council of the Hydropower Producing Areas, with Joseph Tofa as chairman. The legislators raised concern on what they described as a precarious state of Nigeria's aviation sector. A motion by Senator Adamu Alero urged the federal government to ease the financial burden on airline operators by implementing its orders on zero customs and import duties and the removal of VAT for airline operators.
The placement of NCAA 5% ticket sales charge with a fixed charge similar to FAN passenger service charge.
Nigeria, we are not saying it's a must to give them palliative, but let us allow the aviation industry in the next 3 years to be tax-free so that they could manage this aircraft very well.
Request the Central Bank of Nigeria to make foreign exchange readily and easily accessible for the sector and make the interest rate a single digit for airlines, which will reduce the cost of capital.
2 senators, Biodun Olujimi and Gashon Basi, moved motions urging the federal government to set up a panel to visit all states where properties were destroyed during the EndSARS protest and to give the states 1% of VAT benefit to assist them rebuild the structures.
Urge the federal government to establish a special economic assistance to Lagos State.
As the EndSARS victims are being compensated, so also the victims of banditry should also be compensated.
The Senate has approved the refund of 148.1 billion naira to 5 states of Bayelsa, Cross River, Ondo, Osun and River State for projects executed on behalf of the federal government. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
The governors and people of the South-South region have demanded for the restructuring of the country in line with the principle of fiscal federalism to guarantee peace, security, stability and progress. This was the unanimous submission of the zone in the meeting with the federal government's delegation led by the Chief of Staff to the President, Ambassador Ibrahim Gambari at Government House, Port Harcourt. Ogedi Nyekwere completes the report. Okay, we'll bring you details of that in a subsequent bulletin. Now, the need for the NNPC to reactivate failed and vandalize pipelines in the country to reduce the burden of transporting petroleum products by road, as well as the essentials of setting a timeline for the enforcement of the maximum load capacity of 45,000 litres of petroleum products by trucks operating from the tank farms across the country were part of the recommendations to a strategic stakeholders meeting held to forestall frequent cases of road traffic crashes involving petroleum tankers and trucks, which continues to claim lives and property in the country. A statement by the Federal Road Safety Corps says the meeting, which was a directive of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, also recommends that the SGF considers securing a presidential directive for urgent intervention in the provision of soft loans for truck renewal, using similar templates as applicable to pharmaceutical companies and other sectors of the economy at the peak of COVID-19. The meeting resolved that enforcement of all safety standards, including anti-skid, anti-rollover, and anti-spill safety valves, be prioritized. The Federal Road Safety Corps, in collaborations with the major oil marketers of Nigeria, MOMAN, and the National Association of Road Transport Owners, NARTO, is also to organize enlightenment campaign for articulated vehicle drivers. Now, the House of Representatives has passed for second reading the Petroleum Industry Bill. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that the House also passed at second reading the Electoral Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill on the first day of plenary upon reconvening after weeks of break for budget defense.
Welcoming members back to plenary, House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila noted key legislations before the House, such as the 2021 budget, the PIB, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, the Police Service Commission Bill, and the process of constitutional review.
I encourage all the chairmen and deputy chairmen of the House committees to seek out innovative avenues for public engagement, stakeholder collaboration, and cross-pollination of policy ideas.
The PIB, a bill that began its journey in the 5th Assembly, seeks wholesale developments of the oil and gas subsector.
Legal framework, Mr. Speaker, so that we can take advantage of exploring and exploiting all available resources in the oil and gas subsector.
The essence of this PIB is to institutionalize good governance and ease of doing business in Nigeria. What the PIB seeks to achieve is to unbundle the NNPC.
Another piece of legislation that got the nod of House members is the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which seeks to regulate the conduct of federal, state, and FCT area council elections.
The need to consolidate on the gains of our democratic achievements and to also address the lacuna identified in the electoral legal framework.
48 hours is just too short for anybody, for any political party, to substitute a candidate that is dead. In America, that we're taking example, you know the system, you know how they sponsor their own candidates.
It also passed second reading and was referred to relevant committee. Coming under matter of privilege during Tuesday's plenary, Representative Haruna Mashelia said Governor Zulum of Borno deserves commendation for exemplary leadership in the face of security challenge.
I want to put it on record, even though our privileges are hampered in the state, it has not deterred him, and he's working very hard.
The need to beef up security in Chibok and Damboa to curb insurgency attacks raised by Representative Ahmed Jaha was adopted. The House prayed for the repose of the soul of Ifeanyi Okereke, the vendor who died last Thursday from the shot fired by a security personnel attached to the Speaker. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
Now let's quickly get back to the story I told us earlier. That's on the South-South stakeholders meeting with the federal government delegation. Now the governors and people of the South-South region are demanding for the restructuring of the country in line with the principle of fiscal federalism to guarantee peace, security, stability and progress. This was an unanimous submission of the zone in a meeting with the delegation from the federal government led by Ambassador Ibrahim Gambari at Government House, Port Harcourt. Yes, Ogidi Inyekwere with the report.
is convened at the instance of the federal government to consult with regional leaders and its people on issues of concern and the aftermath of the NSAS protests. Chairman of the South-South Governors Forum and Governor of Delta State, Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, who presented the submissions of the zone, said the NSAS protest is a metaphor of almost all that affects the country.
In this regard, I need to state very unequivocally, and on behalf of the people of this region, that we believe, support, and are committed to the restructuring of Nigeria in a way and manner that guarantees 1. True federalism and devolution of power to the states, including states creating and managing their own police and security architecture under a federal structure.
Ministers and National Assembly representatives from the zone aligned with the position of the region.
And as your representatives in the National Assembly, our job is to see to it as much as possible that all of the requests you've canvassed come to fruition.
Leader of the federal government delegation, Ambassador Ibrahim Gambari, said the country is better off together and strengthening its components.
It's very important to look at this very critically and build institutions that unite us instead of institutions that may very well divide us. It's very important also to remember that one of the failures of the First Republic is that we had very strong regions, 3 of them, later on 4, and very weak center. And the end result of that was disaster.
Other members of the delegation responded to questions as it relates to their office. The forum felicitated with the leader of the federal government delegation on his birthday. In Port Harcourt, Ogedinyekwere, NTA News.
You're still on to the news at 10 on NTA News 24. Still ahead. Ending violence against women and girls. 16 days activism underway. Details in a moment.
The death has been announced of Madam Regina Maureen Awawuma Nwagu of Ife Ezinihite, Mbise local government area of Imo State. She is survived by children, grandchildren, and many other relations. Funeral service Saturday, 28th November 2020, time 10 a.m. Venue Central School Ife Ezinihite, Mbise local government area of Imo State. Signed, Elzenwa Nwagu for the family.
I can't feel at home.